We're less than a year away from seeing the third Avengers film, which will be the first of a two-part epic chronicling the Infinity Wars. All roads have led here, and we're finally get to see what all the fuss was about when it comes to the Infinity Stones. The first one showed itself way back in the first Captain America film, and we've steadily been getting more information on them since. However, they remain one of the great mysteries of the MCU. That is until we did some detective work and found some interesting facts about them.
The Mind Stone. It's one of the 6 Infinity Stones, the greatest power in the universe, unparalleled in its destructive capability.
Gems to stones. They may be called stones in the MCU, but the mystical and magical devices have served as some of the most useful tools for our heroes while also being the cause of a lot of damage and wrongdoing. While the Mind Stone is responsible for bringing Vision to life, it also gave Loki a group of henchmen, which allowed him to open the portal for the Chitauri. In the comic books, though, the stones are referred to as the Infinity Gems, and before that, the Soul Gems. The very first one to appear was the gem that was embedded into the forehead of Adam Warlock, a character who was teased in one of the 5 after-credit scenes in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. In the films, we've yet to see the stones be used in unison, but we do know that Thanos, the big baddie of the entire first 3 phases, now has the Infinity Gauntlet. In the comics, Thanos was the first being to ever use all 6 gems at the same time, giving him so much power that it took the entire Avengers roster, Adam Warlock and Captain Marvel, to take him down. Despite the subtle changes in the comics, we should expect Thanos to be wonderfully overpowered when he gets all 6 stones in the films.
What you seek is just a legend. Then why make such an effort to conceal it?
5 out of 6. Despite being less than a year away from the Avengers Infinity War, we still haven't seen all of the stones yet. The Infinity Conflict was brought up during Captain America, the first Avenger, when the Red Skull uncovered the Tesseract.
The Tesseract was the jewel of Odin's treasure room.
Since then, more of the stones have made themselves known, quite a lot of them tying back to Asgard in some way, shape, or form. Aside from the Tesseract, the Ether made an appearance in Thor: The Dark World, which was used in both Dark Elf conflicts, and the Mind Stone was part of Loki's scepter once Thanos presented it to him. As we know, Thanos and Loki lost that stone, and now it's in Vision's head. The future looks grim for Vision. There's also the Power Stone, which was the driving MacGuffin for the first Guardians of the Galaxy film, and the film that finally gave us some backstory on what the stones actually are.
We're all very fascinated.
And last but not least, the Time Stone, which was last seen in Doctor Strange. So how about that last stone? Yet to be formally revealed, the Soul Stone has yet to make an appearance. When do you think we'll finally get our first look at the final stone in the MCU?
Observe.
Infinity Stones. Origins. So where did the stones come from anyhow? While we're a bit in the dark on that question, we do know some bits of information about the Infinity Stones and their comic book counterparts. In the MCU, the power that would become the stones were floating around the void of space as singularities, transforming into stones after the Big Bang happened. Once that happened, the cosmic entities forged the singularities into 6 Infinity Stones based on different aspects of the universe, those being reality, time, space, mind, power, and soul. But none of this was established to audiences until Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. The Infinity Stones, on the other hand, were introduced to readers in 1972 in Marvel Premiere number 1, which introduced fans to the Soul Gem and Adam Warlock. Considering the Soul Gem was introduced with Adam Warlock, we're quite certain he'll end up in possession of the stone at some point or another, but not until Thanos gets a hold of it somehow. In the comics, the Elders of the Universe used the Soul Gems to try and drain Galactus of his power initially, so the two versions have very different backstories. Which one do you prefer? Let us know below.
Yeah, the cube is a doorway to the other end of space, right?
Stones and their cases. Unlike the gems from the comics, the Infinity Stones can take on other shapes beyond a simple gem-like state. In the first Avenger, we learned of the Tesseract, which would become an incredibly important plot device for the next film, the very first Avengers. But the Tesseract was only what the Avengers and members of S.H.I.E.L.D. called the device. The Cap referred to it, of course, as Hydra's secret weapon, but the glowing blue cube was actually the Space Stone the whole time. The MCU hasn't given away the names of all their stones explicitly yet, referring to them largely by the casing that encompasses the power. The Ether, for example, is the only liquid-based stone, but it is in fact the Reality Stone, which we see solidified in Thor's vision in Age of Ultron. The Power Stone was referred to as the Orb for most of the runtime in Guardians of the Galaxy.
But it's not something I would ever say about myself.
And the Mind Stone was better known as Loki's scepter years before it was revealed to even be an Infinity Stone. Of course, the Time Stone is the Eye of Agamotto, and is the wackiest stone of them all. Thankfully for the Avengers, Thanos doesn't have any of these powerful stones. Yet.
Stop trying to scare us.
Not for everyone. As briefly mentioned in the first Guardians of the Galaxy film, not everyone can use the Infinity Stones. Even just touching one can have dire consequences, which is what happened when the Collector's assistant touched the Power Stone and set off a chain reaction. Only beings of immense power can wield the power of an Infinity Stone without being utterly destroyed. Humans fall under this bracket, so Iron Man or Captain America, for example, would be spare parts if they got a hold of a stone and touched it. Superpowers counting for nothing here. There are exceptions, of course, as Doctor Strange is able to wield the Time Stone thanks to his magical aptitude, and the Ether takes Jane Foster as a hostage, which doesn't kill her immediately, but does threaten her life if not taken care of. The only beings that can touch it are the Celestials, of which Star-Lord is half thanks to his father Ego, the Dark Elves, the Kree, and Vision, who is an AI. Loki, a frost giant by birth, had no problem controlling the Mind Stone, but it was kept secure in the scepter. Thanks to that, it is currently unknown if frost giants, or even as Guardians, can hold Infinity Stones safely.
Then Thanos, I'm coming for you.
The Infinity Gauntlet. Getting all the stones is the ultimate goal for Thanos, but we all know by now, being in possession of all of them is only half the battle. The one who wishes to use the power of the stones also needs to be in possession of the Infinity Gauntlet, a device we know that Thanos now has a hold of thanks to the after-credit scene in Age of Ultron. So what is the Gauntlet anyhow? When coupled with its 6 Infinity Stones, which fit nicely into the magical accessory, the Infinity Gauntlet becomes one of the most powerful objects in the entire Marvel canon. With the 6 aspects of the universe working in tandem, the wearer of the Gauntlet is basically free to do what they want with the immense power available quite literally in the palm of their hand. We've seen what one stone on its own can do, imagine 6 combined. The Gauntlet's power is so vast that even heroes are at risk of doing something destructive as using the Gauntlet. Now take that power and put it into the hand of the Mad Titan, the same guy who unleashed the Chitauri on Earth in the Avengers. Not good.
Attacking Thanos? A pathetic attempt from a pathetic species.
What gives, Thanos? So why does Thanos want to use the power of the 6 Infinity Stones anyways? So far, all we've seen the guy do is sit in a space chair and take the Gauntlet. We know he has it in for Earth thanks to the first Avengers film, but so far his motivations remain clouded and unknown. While there isn't much known about the Mad Titan on the silver screen at present, we can look back to the comic books to seek inspiration for why he might be doing the things he's doing. Cutting straight to the point, Thanos is a power-hungry guy who sees the stones and the Gauntlet as a way to achieve maximum power and thus enforce his will. Pretty standard bad guy stuff there, but that's not Thanos' only reason for wanting so much power in the comic books though. See, Thanos has a crush, and the only way he thinks he can impress said crush is by being an almighty powerful space destroyer. Well, what kind of girl would be interested in such a being? Well, it turns out Thanos' lady crush is Death herself. And there's a chance we may even see her as Thanos' lackey informs him that challenging the Avengers is to court Death. Was that a hint?
Time to put this gauntlet into safekeeping.
Who else wore the Gauntlet? While Thanos is currently in possession of the Infinity Gauntlet in the MCU, there's sure to be other beings who have used it before. Heck, there's even a secondary Gauntlet in Odin's treasure room, as seen in the first Thor film. While the Gauntlet's past is obscured in the films, other beings have actually sported the Gauntlet in the comics, hinting that perhaps one of them will take the mantle before the Infinity War is over. Interestingly, one person who wore the Gauntlet was none other than Nebula, Thanos' daughter and reluctant ally of the Guardians of the Galaxy. But by the end of Volume 2, she's declared that she's off on her own mission to kill Thanos, so she clearly has it out for him. In the comics, Nebula takes the Gauntlet for herself after Thanos' passing. Other bearers of the Gauntlet include Iron Man, Captain America, Mr. Fantastic, Adam Warlock, and Darkseid. Wait, what? Darkseid? Yup. In a Marvel DC crossover event, the character that inspired Thanos got his hands on the Infinity Gauntlet, but since it can only be used in the Marvel universe, it didn't work out for him. Do you think anyone other than Thanos will use the Gauntlet in the MCU? Let us know who you think will in the comments.
You might have seen it coming if you weren't so busy building statues of yourself.
Unknown future. When Kevin Feige and his team were planning out the MCU, no one knew just how popular the films would become. With that in mind, no one knew if the films would ever be popular enough to justify the cost of adapting the Infinity Gauntlet story arc, which is a pretty insane thing to do if you think about it. So the early films actually hid the fact that the powerful items in their films were Infinity Stones. That's why the Tesseract appears as a cube in the first Avenger. Heck, the first Avengers film had 2 Infinity Stones, and we had no idea about that until the second Avengers film, Age of Ultron, happened. By initially disguising the stones, the producers were covering their tracks in case adapting the Gauntlet arc was a no-go with their investors. They would have then created their own unique story that would have likely pulled certain inspirations from the Gauntlet arc. The disguise worked well for itself though, and fans had no idea they were witnessing the power of the Infinity Stones, and the reveal came as quite the surprise by the time they were name-dropped in the second Thor film.
You failed!
A seventh stone? We've been led to believe that there are 6 Infinity Stones in the MCU, but we didn't even know about the term Infinity Stones until Thor: The Dark World. With that in mind, it's not so crazy to assume that a 7th stone may be hiding out there, unknown to any of the heroes or the audience. In the 2015 comic series Secret Wars, a 7th stone was revealed to exist. It was the very sinister-sounding Death Stone, which can kill anyone instantly. Talk about being extra overpowered. Much like the Reality Stone is in the comics, the Death Stone was yellow and was initially designed to be its decoy. In Secret Wars, the stone was ultimately used against Thanos by Anwin Bacchian. Things would get quite interesting if the Death Stone made an appearance, especially considering Adam Warlock is entering the bigger picture now. If he can use the Soul and Death Stones at the same time, perhaps he can be the one to vanquish Thanos. What do you think about our theory? How will Thanos meet his end in the Infinity films, and will the Death Stone ultimately be shown on the big screen?
I will only make one offer. Give me what was stolen, and I will spare your world.